I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room.
Possible DTA suspect there now, 4730 Crystal Springs Drive, in the parking lot above the merry-go-round. Two males, no further description, adding striping to a black Cadillac four-door, possibly exchanging plates, vehicle license Utah 2904, California, Paul William Norris 011.
Welcome to the interview room, everybody.
3196.
Time to take a seat. As always, coming to you from an undisclosed location. If you enjoy real crime, mystery, you've come to the right channel. At TIR, we follow the evidence wherever it takes us on a case. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. All opinions are welcomed. We only ask one thing: you keep them safe, classy, and factual. Thank you always to our mods, our members, and our subscribers. With all of you, we can move mountains of justice for victims and families. Special program tonight. Popeye is in custody because of a mother's relentless hunt for her daughter's killer. Mr. McLeod is no longer flexing his muscles. In fact, the victim's mother, who you guys know, Josephine Wentzel, is our guest. This woman hunted this individual down. Welcome, Josephine, to the program.
Hi, Chris.
How are you?
Nice seeing you again since the last interview.
It is so exciting to have you here this evening with this amazing result. And I'm not going to I'm not going to spoil anything right up front, but I want everybody to know that we were talking just a couple of minutes ago behind the scenes, and I said to her, I said, you know, you are amazing and tenacious, and oh my gosh, I called you something that was different than what you were thinking. Can I share that with everybody?
Sure. Go ahead.
I said, you know, I was reading all the news articles about you being, you know, a mother bear, and, you know, just all the tenacity and all the stuff that people were saying about you and the news was saying about you. But my analogy of you was, you know, bears will chase you down and then, you know, let you go. But a Tyrannosaurus Rex will eat you.
I like that.
And you have been such an amazing force for your sweet daughter, Krystal.
Yeah.
And an amazing force and example for so many moms and so many families who have experienced what you and your family tragically have had to go through. And you're now on phase 2 here with this meathead in custody. And, it's amazing how you guys, and when I say you guys, because it takes a village, as you said, how tenacious you worked with all law enforcement agencies. And I think a lot of people are not aware that you were also behind the scenes on the Maya Miliete case in San Diego, helping Richard and Mary Chris to kind of, wrap their minds around some things. And you also negotiated some bridges with Chula Vista PD. And so you it's starting to rain where I am. Sorry. Hopefully I'm still here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're still there. Yes.
Okay. So, no, tell everybody a little bit about your background, and then I'm going to bring the audience up to speed who may, have just joined our channel here over at the interview room. We've done a couple of, cases or reports on this from well over almost a year ago now, looking back at it.
Yeah.
And tell everybody a little bit about your background, but more importantly, just, share whatever you feel you want to share. How about that?
Okay. Well, most people ask me, like, why did you get involved? How did you get involved? So, as most of the viewers know, my daughter, Krystal J. Mitchell, was brutally murdered by a man who was out on bond from Riverside, California, for attempting to kill his estranged wife. And he met my daughter in Phoenix when he went to the apartments where she was managing and wanted to lease an apartment. Now, why a man who's out on bond facing a felony in jail would sign a lease, I have no idea. But that kind of tells you of his mindset. And so anyway, after meeting, they were not boyfriend, girlfriends. They were just started to date. And in their dating, I always said that he wasn't looking for a girlfriend. He was looking for the next victim because he had a wife. And on the way to San Diego, he was sending provocative pictures to other women. But yet he told my daughter when he started to date, he said, let's do exclusive dating. So he wanted to isolate his victim also. And they went up to San Diego, and I received a phone call the following day from San Diego Police Department that she was murdered. And that was the hardest time in our entire life. And, I basically just lost it for that time. But, I had to gather myself because Krystal's two small children were staying with us for the summer. And I can't go crazy. I can't lose my mind. I had to deal with my emotions privately and, try to encourage my two small grandchildren that everything's going to be okay. In the meantime, my family's falling apart, and so navigating through that, and long story short, we get to the investigations, and for 5 months, I had been communicating with a sergeant from San Diego PD. Great people, treated me very well, but had no answers for me. And every time I called, it was nothing, nothing, nothing. So I started looking around. I started investigating, like, what happens when a person commits a crime and flees the country? How do we go after them? What do we do next? I mean, I've never experienced this in my life. And so I started looking into all those things and what agencies should be involved. And, I just started doing my own background investigation to figure this out. Who was I going to next? And so in the process, I kept doing everything I could to bring attention to the case because I realized that there were no boots on the ground and the places weren't being papered. That's what I assumed was happening. I thought this guy murdered my daughter. Now they're going after him. Well, that wasn't the case. They communicated with liaisons over there. This was before the U.S. Marshals got involved. They were communicating, San Diego PD was communicating through liaisons from their offices. And then when it was discovered that he went into Belize, that's when the Marshals got involved. And so when I called up the bail bondsman and I was talking to him to find out what his role was, I mean, after all, they're the one that gave him, guaranteed he's going to come back. And so he was telling me, well, nobody's doing anything. And I said, well, they're after him right now in Central America. And he says, no. I said, what do you mean? They told me there's boots in the ground. He said, there's no boots in the ground. I go, of course there is. It's murder, for crying out loud. Yes, they told me that. Why would they lie to me? And so I find out later on, what do you mean boots in the ground? And what do you mean that it was papered? Oh, well, the embassies are aware, and, people who we send to are aware. So great. You have his poster hanging in the post office. Who looks at those things anymore? I mean, it doesn't make sense that you're looking for somebody, but yet you're not going to alert the country or people around there that he's wanted.
Yeah, and you definitely changed that dynamic. Let me bring everybody up to speed here on your sweet daughter, just and then some of the steps that you took, right? And so, tell us about Krystal. So those that don't know her get to feel her.
She just turned 30 years old, and Krystal was a funny girl. I mean, she really was. She had a very kind personality. She cared about everybody. She would treat the homeless person like she would treat the president of the United States. Well, there's not much of a difference. No, just kidding. But anyway, she was kind-hearted. She was as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. We had a lot of family reunions growing up. I'm the 11th child of 15 kids. So we have like a gazillion. We have our own villages, right? And when Krystal would be in there and we do photographs, wherever she was, somebody would be grimacing because she's either biting their leg, pinching them, tickling them, or doing something. And so you always hear this, Krystal, and then you hear her laughter. And she was always, when I'd go to her her condo when she was living in Phoenix, she would do things like I'd get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and she's hiding in the kitchen waiting for me, 4 a.m., and then she jumps up and scares the heck out of me. So I was always looking out for her. And so was the whole entire family. We're always looking out like, where's Krystal? What's she going to do next? She loved horses, just loved horses. And she made friends with neighbors. My brother has a farm, and she made friends with the neighbors that had horses. And every time we went family reunion in California, she was on those horses everywhere. She was a beautiful, 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 bright soul. And I miss her a lot.
And so you go on the hunt, and when we first connected, you were, and you still are, because I know you.
It ain't over till it's over.
No, and I have a motorcycle going by. Please forgive me. I just know that you have been so creative in your ideas, and one of those ideas came to fruition in relationship to a book that you wrote about her and about the case and the hunt,
Yes.
and obviously this is it here. It's called The Chase, and this was the knucklehead. I don't even like using his name, to be honest with you, out of respect for you and Krystal. I mean, I guess it's necessary. Obviously, it's McLeod, but unfortunately for him, he underestimated you. So, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I had to laugh. He underestimated me, and I kind of chuckled about that because when he was found, the first question he had to them was, "How did you find me?" I said, "Why did
really?
you tell them? It was Krystal's mother that got you. Why did you say that? Why did you
I
say it
love
was
it. So,
Josephine, the old lady?
yeah, so
Got you.
take us back to that moment when you found out he was captured.
Well, getting back to the book, what was
Yes.
interesting in the book and the reason why I felt I needed to write it was if you look in the back and inside the book, there's a wanted poster. Okay. And in back of the book, there's that wanted poster. So in my mind, if I could write this book, even if I sold one book, the fact of the matter is it's a psychological thing that there's a book out there about him and anybody could be reading it. So, that's the success behind just writing the book. But in writing the book, Chris, I did due diligence to fly out to Phoenix and actually go through the court cases to see what kind of cases that he was involved in. And there were quite a few. We found divorce records, restraining orders, and I wanted to put it in the book, and I dedicated a chapter to it because I did not want the defense or the prosecuting attorney or anybody else to miss any information that's out there. Because apparently when Riverside, California released this monster back into society, they did not do diligence to check and see that he was 100% a threat to society. So I wanted to make sure that book was there and everything was written there. It's all the records that they see that this guy is a bad dude and shouldn't be back out there.
Yeah, he was very, very dangerous to women, and you even have an intuition that you think he's done even more.
It was just not just an intuition. I mean, there were witnesses there. A couple of guys he pulled a knife on. He was witness to have bludgeoned a dog to death in a cage. An old man, the hostel owner, was found dead in the bottom of an empty swimming pool with a broken neck after fearing for his life from McLeod, who threatened him. Now, I can't say he did it, okay? I mean, in all fairness, I can't say he was responsible for that. But these are the information I'm getting from people out there while I was doing my own search and investigation. And just the fact that he did what he did to my daughter, I wouldn't put it past him that he did kill that guy and broke his neck. I mean, you and I know, bring the experts in. He's not going to break his neck that way in the shallow swimming pool. And so there were a lot of things that took place. People came forth. Apparently there was a Mayan woman that he was with in Guatemala that he beat up really badly. So he was trouble out there, big time. And it would be very interesting to find out, and I'm looking into it, how many women in that area that attended that school that could have gone missing, could have died, could have been strangled, murdered. Because this guy is crazy. He's not going to stop. He's not going to change.
Yeah, no, you were definitely on him at that moment. And in fact, if you just look at him, I mean, he just had that, that look of, this guy's really dangerous. And then he had the military training too. I mean, he was a disgrace to the Marine Corps.
Yes.
And I mean, all the Marines that worked with him were like, we hate this guy. He's brought shame upon some of those, worthy warriors of our country. And this guy was never one of them. In fact, I think based on, how you described him, you may have put this, he may have been a serial. I mean, we don't know that for sure, but he's got all of the markings, and then he takes off into South America. And for the first time, right, this was the first time there was a reward put up by the U.S. Marshal's Office of $50,000. Am I right? And he made the top 15 in the United States, most wanted.
Yes, and according to the Marshal, the headquarters, this was the first case in U.S. Marshal history to receive 50,000 as a top 15.
Yeah.
And I think it had to do a lot with what I was doing. I was pushing very hard. I was bringing a lot of publicity to the case to put the pressure on. And as you know, and I describe it all in the book, but I wrote the White House and actually got a case number. And the White House had contacted the Marshal's office in San Diego. So, I had a lot of attention to the point where the deputy director of Interpol and the deputy director of the Global Police knows my case, and they reached out to me to congratulate me on the capture. And it all has to do with because of my pushing. Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. You should see me drive, Josephine. It's kind of a scary sight sometimes. I'm teasing. No, I mean, it goes back to, just this amazing, I know I'm going to call you a Tyrannosaurus Rex mother. Because, you have been a force to be reckoned with. And you know what? This guy is a very dangerous, savage in terms of his skill set. He's, former military, bodybuilder. He's got all the, the markings of, this guy could be dangerous if he goes sideways. And sure enough, he does. And you guys experienced that as a family. But you took that energy for your daughter and you put it into motion.
Yes.
Into motion. So take me back to the moment when you did find out they got him. And I know you had a lot of, you've been in contact with so many agencies, but more specifically, there were a couple of U.S. Marshals, and I had one of them on your guy. I want to let you, and I know how gracious you are to him and others, many others, but they didn't give up. They didn't give up.
No, they didn't. And, it was a joint effort. There's just no two ways about it. I know they, when he was caught, I was put on speakerphone and they're all screaming, including El Salvador police. You did it, mama. You did it. You did it. This is you. You did it. Yes. And they're all screaming and, and I was crying and I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? Francisco, did you check his tattoos? Are you sure it's him? I wanted to believe it, but we've gone through so many tips before. And, we even had one time Roatan, Honduras was surrounded by the military and Frankie Sanchez, the marshal leading the charge. And they went door to door looking for him. And I got contacted during the search. Some people were texting me and saying, hey, the marshals and the military just came by my house. They're looking for him. I mean, I was like involved in these live things as they were going on, just sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee, my Fresca, and typing away,
And I got one of those text messages within a half hour of his in custody, and you swore me to secrecy, and I kept it. I was like, nope, not going to say anything. But the joy I felt in that text message, and then I called you, and I was like, "Are you serious?" You were like, "Oh, it's him." And I asked, "Well, what about his tattoos?" And you told me something interesting. Share what you learned about how he was hiding his tattoos.
Okay, so I was telling the marshal, look at him, because like I said, the first thing he wanted to know was, how did you find me? I took extra precaution to hide myself, to protect myself. How did you find me? He he was balding. So when we put it out there, he's balding. He's got a lot of tattoos, big guy, right? Well, what he did, because he's balding in the top, was he bunned his hair up in the back. He grew his hair out and he bunned it. And he wore a baseball cap. And that's what was confusing, because the baseball cap would shadow his face. So when I got the picture of him, it was like the baseball cap shadowing his face, hair growing down here, and big square diamond earrings, no tattoos. So it was like, we've been wrong before. And I looked at it and I said, man, the eyes, the mouth, the way it's formed, this really looks like him. And I'm like, I want to say it's him, but it was just so surreal. Like, I'm really looking at him, And so I'm like, you know what, Francisco, I was right in the middle of 2 other cases looking for missing women. And I was more, I'll tell you the truth, I was more concerned about those cases because I was hot on the trail. And I'm like, Francisco, you can handle this, you got this. And let me know what's going on while I'm doing this. And so anyway, he was wearing a long sleeve that covers the tattoos. And when he's not wearing the long sleeves, he's wearing regular shirts with long sleeve. I mean, that in itself is punishment in El Salvador, in the humidity and the heat, and wearing combat boots. It was unbelievable. But when they found him, they said he aged really badly. They said, man, this dude's had a hard life. He looked like he was 20 years older. And
that's you. That's you. Good for you. God bless you. God opened up some windows there and, yes, wore him out.
100%. It was God. And it, right before that, I knew that either he had been seen or he was moving around, because right before that, we got all these contact from people pointing us to Colombia. And not just one call, not just 2, there were several contacts about Colombia. We've sent the marshals out there a couple of times to go check it out, but I knew something was up. It just didn't make sense. So I told the marshals, something is happening. Either he was spotted and he wanted to make sure that we were diverted to this area, or he's moving around and he wants to see where we're at. And sure enough, I was accurate. They were pointing us in all the way up until he was caught. Just imagine that, all the way up. I mean, I even received a letter written in Spanish saying, basically, well, I'm sorry what happened to your daughter. I've been with Raymond for 2 years, and he didn't mean to do what he did. And I'm pregnant now with our daughter. And so I'm asking you to please quit advertising, because I want my daughter to have a normal life.
Yeah, no, I remember you sharing that with me. And that was like, you got to be kidding me.
It was crazy. It was just crazy. And so anyway, when he was caught, I actually, like, before Francisco actually went out there to get him, like a couple days later, I was scanning through my phone for something, and I came upon that picture, and I just started screaming, it's him, it's him. Oh my gosh, it's him. It's like all of a sudden it hit me, and I'm calling Francisco and I'm going, it's him, get him. And if it's not him, arrest him and bring him back, because I swear it's him. And so it was really something, but I was still like biting my nails until he left the country, because so many things could have happened. And I've heard stories where sometimes they go back to get them, to extradite them, and they kill themselves or they're dead. So we weren't sure what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, El Salvador.
To be clear on his case, okay, just to be clear, the U.S. Marshals did not go there and arrest him there.
Right.
They went there and got the El Salvadoran government to arrest him themselves and deport him. So he couldn't exercise the right to refuse to be extradited. He tried. He didn't want to leave, but he couldn't exercise that.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I think that's called an Article 4, where you have to have, there are certain jurisdictions in Central America and then South America where you've got to have everything lined up perfectly.
You got to be there. You got to be there legally.
Exactly. And you only have a small window to
Yes.
do it, or else
Yes.
they're going to, you know, push him back through into the abyss there. And
Yes.
so take me back to, and if you can, and I totally understand if you can't, obviously, you know, there was a tipster that dined him off, and if you can't talk about that, that's cool. But how are your feelings towards that person today? Who finally somebody, and let me bring one other thought before you answer that. This book, friends in TIR family, if you're just joining us, if you have not ordered this book, go get this book. Josephine had this idea of taking this book, which she did, and putting it in every gym in the world. And because this guy was a big time muscle head, and she wanted to flood the gyms with this book so that every time this guy walked into a gym, he had no place to hide. Now, can you share with us if any of the media or any of the things you were doing on social media, what do you think kicked this off to where somebody says, hey, here he is? Because you've been looking for him for 6 years.
They saw what I did. They saw my posting. They saw what I was putting out there. Yes. And Univision, which if anybody's looking for someone in Central America, you know, if you have a case out there, I highly, highly recommend and suggest that you get a hold of Univision, which is the Hispanic newspaper. They're everywhere worldwide. And especially if you're looking for people in Central America and Mexico, people really pay attention to that paper. And if you can get them to write an article and help you, that's what helped. So what I did was I took their article because, you know, the challenges I had when I was in Belize, you know, most people were speaking English. But when I got into Guatemala, it was a different type of Spanish. And the further south you went, it was even worse, you know. So my girlfriend, who's Hispanic, read one of the posts I sent out, and she said, Josephine, do me a favor. Can you check me before you put those things out? And I'm like, why? She says, because you just told that woman her life wasn't worth it. And I'm like, no,
there's so many different dialects.
Living your life over. So,
exactly.
So those were the challenges. So I took the Univision ad and I plastered it everywhere. And she saw, or the source, you know, the source saw that article, and that's how it started. And I have to give hats off to U.S. Marshal Francisco Barajas, amazing guy to work with. He was so kind, so accommodating, so available. And he jumped on every tip. He was the most professional guy I've met. The marshal before that, who's, you know, and these guys are my friends now, of course, Frankie Sanchez, who rose to the top, and he's acting chief regional task force from Los Angeles and covers several states. And these guys were my partners, you know. And I love them so much. They're like my sons for life, you know. But it took a joint effort. And the reason why they worked with me, because I was bringing them the tips. And because there was trust and we had confidence. And, you know, my background, you know, we keep things confidential. And, you know, and I encourage families, Chris, when you're working with law enforcement families or anybody out there, be kind to them. You know, I mean, just be kind to them. You don't bite the hand that feeds you or take care of you, you know. Express your anger in showers. I cried a lot in my showers, and you just get all your anger and disappointment out. And then you go back and put up your face and say, okay, here we are. What's the next step? You know, you may be dying inside, but you know, I know that if I would have shown any kind of aggression towards them, they would have just locked me out. Right? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my analogy on that always, and I counsel families all the time, like you, is, um, you know, if you try to push a string up a hill, you'll get no result. But if you pull the string up the hill, you'll get result. And there's a family that you and I talked about before this show here. You know, they have a 22-year-old daughter who's missing as well, Josephine Fuentes. And I know that you can teach them a lot about, you know, perseverance and getting some things done. But that we'll talk about that at another time at length.
Okay.
But okay, so you get the impression, or you now know it's him. Okay, and he's in custody. They take him down, and this is in El Salvador, right?
Yes.
Okay, so almost 7 years, or 6.5, almost 7 years now, right, has come to pass, and you get that moment where it's like, okay, you know. So my question is about him. Did he whine like a little baby? If you know,
What I heard, a quiet silence.
he just shut up. Yeah.
Silence.
Yeah.
All the way.
Well,
And I went out there to San Diego, you know, for the arraignment.
He wouldn't make they extradite him to San Diego. Right.
Yes. He wouldn't make any contact with me. Eye contact. He tried, you know, he was like lifting his eye up, and when he saw me, he just jerked away like this. And then he tried again, and I was looking at him, and he dropped his head again. So I'm like, maybe we won't go to trial after all, huh? I don't know. We'll see. I'm not looking forward to this trial where victims are the ones that are in question, you know, where the victims are put through the pain and suffering. It's just, I'm just not looking forward to that. I hope to God that he pleads guilty, or somebody pleads for him, or something happens. I just don't think it's fair that families should go through, you know, what happens in court.
Yeah, another round
of a lot of things, and you know, that's going to be another journey. Unless, like I said, he pleads guilty. I'm hoping he does. Right now, he's only facing, you know, you're talking about California. So first degree murder, you're looking at 25 years to life, which means that he only serves 25, which I can never get. You know, somebody runs over a dog and they get life in prison. Somebody brutally murders a young mother, and well, let's negotiate. Maybe, you know, maybe 25, maybe, you know, I mean, it should be a life for life. You take a life, you lose your life, period. End of story, you know?
Yeah, there's another family, the Sinkhole family, that, you know, the parole was thinking about letting this another brutal.
I helped in that case, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I told her, go see the governor. And she's like, the governor? I'm like, of course. Listen, any elected official out there, you have a right to see them because your tax dollars pay them. You go see your congressperson, you demand to see your senators, anybody that's elected, your mayor, your chief of police, anyone that's elected, you have the right to be in their presence. Just remember that. Don't let them push you out. The governor, the White House, anybody, you have a right to request presence and to see them. You demand it. They're your representatives, family. You make them represent you. Change the laws if they have to. The laws need to be changed. You know, we were operating in an archaic system. We find out more in social media than you will in NCIC or anything else, because there's more out there. When people getting ready to kill, they put it out there on Facebook. They're murdering on camera live. So you get to catch more on social media.
Well, you know, and if these platforms, and I've been preaching this for the last year, if these platforms are utilized in a very professional yet, you know, organized way, They are very powerful, and I think we just saw the result of that. You know, as the
Extreme.
little girl in Truckee, Kylie Rodney. So where, you know, another YouTube channel, AWP came in and discovered her in the vehicle. And it took them about 20 minutes thereabouts. And, you know, that's the power of good people doing good things. And you're another example. I know you've helped so many other women and families as a whole and you've got some ideas on, engaging, different ideas, throwing it out there and seeing how you can organize. There has to be some more organization because I agree with you. I think we've lost touch somehow, in the human experience with you came from literally a village.
Yes, I did.
And one of 15, you said?
I'm the 11th child of 15 kids. One mother, one father.
Yeah, and boy, that guy underestimated that. Didn't he as a whole?
I grew up around my brothers. I boxed them. We used to box for rice, and my dad would throw me in the rink with my brothers. I had to fight them, So I was trained since a small child, as a small girl, to fight men.
Yeah, no, and so how are you preparing though, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, for phase 2 here? I know you just touched on it a little bit, but how can I help you?
I have my faith in God. I've prepared myself. I realize that we're dealing with a broken system. I'm not going to put my hope and my life and everything in a broken system. I trust God, and whatever goes, we're going to go with it. We're going to live through it. I just know that he will not get away with this. I just know that for a fact. I'll tell you that right now. He would never get away with what he did to my daughter. I don't care what the court system does. And, I would be surprised if he even makes it through prison in a year, because besides his attitude, that guy is covered with white supremacist tattoos, the Nazi tattoos. The MS-13 in prison know that he was out there in their country faking it and see all those tattoos on him. Yeah, he'd probably have a hard time. He's probably in solitary right now. Who knows? But I know it's not going to be fun for him. And I know the court's going to take a while. And like I said to the prosecutor, take 10 years if you have to. Just keep him locked up. I mean, what is justice for a family, right? Justice for me is seeing something that's wrong and making it right. Maybe not to the victim, but for other people. That's justice for me. It's correcting the system, Chris. And I can't leave this world that I walked into broken the way it is. I got to make an attempt to fix it. And the only way it's going to happen is we can duplicate what I did. And it doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes volunteers, people that are willing to do it. And it's going to take a village. Like I shared with you, when I'd walk home from school, within 2 miles, my mom would receive 3 or 4 phone calls saying, your daughter's on the way. She talked to a boy on the way. She stopped over here. And we need to come back to that as a community. We can't sit here and watch this happen to our children anymore. We can't sit back like this. There's too many missing in this world, and too many cold cases that are growing out there, Chris. We can't sit back and just say, oh, okay, you're going to go wait for a train. Somebody might push you in front of the train and kill you. Oh, well. Oh, yeah, that guy, yeah, they just released him. He's been in there so many times. We can't put up with this anymore. We need to turn this around. And as long as I have a voice, I am going to be that voice out there. And nothing's going to stop me.
What do you tell moms and who come to you? How do you guide them?
Number one, don't give up, but have a balance. First of all, deal with your grief, okay? Don't go out there half-cocked with your emotions. Go get a counseling, see a doctor immediately, get something to calm your emotions when they get out of hand. Grief, you have to grieve. You can't postpone your grief. You have to grieve. I balanced it with, like I said, I wake up in the morning crying. I take hot showers and I cry my eyes out. Then I straighten up and come down and check out the computer and do my work. Don't go against law enforcement. You know, once a case is with the police department, it is stuck there, whether you or I like it or not. Make them your friends, understand them. If you need help, get an advocate, get a victim advocate. Call us, find out how you can get a victim advocate, but make friends. Be part of the solution and not the problem, and don't get in their way. You know that even when I was a detective, people will say you're not doing your job, and they told me that many times, and I was doing all I could based upon the time I had and what was given to me. You know, we're not alone. There's many other people and many other cases, and that's why I got involved, because I knew that if I didn't do something, I would just be another disappointed parent out there, and I wasn't going to allow that. I wanted to stop this murderer, and I did. And so I'm just saying to you, don't give up. You are your child's voice. Do not let that murderer destroy the rest of your family. Do not let him murder you guys. You know, solve it, treat this murder like a cancer, deal with it, cut it out, put it aside. You'll see your child again. We're all going to die one day. We're all headed there. You'll see your child again. Just make a difference.
Yeah, very wise. That is great wisdom. Great wisdom.
God, I get my wisdom from God.
Yes,
Only God is
we
my
all do.
strength. I'll tell you that right now. God is my strength. He really is. And I'm not trying to be religious about it. There's nothing else, and there's nowhere else, no counselor, no nothing that can give me the peace the way I've gotten it through my faith. So
Yeah.
true story.
And here's one here. Mama T-Rex, you're amazing.
Mama T-Rex, I love it. We got to get a t-shirt. Mama T-Rex.
Go make some t-shirts for sure. Make some t-shirts. That's awesome. I've met a lot of people, and you know that, and just some of the other backstory folks that you don't know, or you may know, but Josephine's also a victims advocate in the Cold Case Foundation. She is one of the, as you can tell, one of the most inspiring victims advocates I think that are out there. And you've done such an amazing thing here, but at the same time, there is this depth of pain and grief that you've also had to navigate through. And you know, you and I have talked offline. Obviously, I recognize that, you know, from our experience with, you know, our son, but not to the depth that you've experienced it because of the tragedy on how, you know, Krystal was taken. And, you know, it's amazing though, but you've empowered so much. And I was watching, you know, one of my heroes and one of my inspirations that I've studied for a very long time is Viktor Frankl. And I was asked recently, you know, what gives me the motivation and how do we keep hope? Mm-hmm. And Viktor Frankl came up with what they call logotherapy. And he's an amazing human being. And if you get a chance, he's got all kinds of stuff online. You should go watch some of it. He talks about the whole purpose of meaning. And he was an Auschwitz survivor. And he is a psychologist in Austria before he was taken captured and put into the concentration camps. But he had this idea about meaning. What is our meaning? And then he talks about how pain takes the human condition to such a different level and such a different spirit that he gives one experience of a sunset where everybody in the concentration camp had migrated towards one side of the camp to watch the sun go down. And he correlates this to this idea of hope. And he said, you know, while I was in this moment, living that moment, watching the sunset, I realized there were people losing hope while simultaneously people gaining hope. Yet the dynamics, okay, of that meaning, okay, was conditional for each individual spirit.
Yes.
You have captured that essence for your family, for Krystal, for the world. And you are such an example of that hope that other families can cling on to. And you know, as a friend, I'm just grateful that I can call you a friend, because I really believe this is just the beginning of a very, very amazing journey ahead of you and ahead of your family. And, you know, and I know you're taking care of the grandkids, Krystal's babies, and they're the love of your life. I know that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not going to talk, I'm not going to talk about the kids out of, you know, right, for the right reasons. But that said, okay, that inspiration that you have been to her children is going to give them that anchor to say, okay, it's about now I can move on. I can keep going. And I think there's a real correlation there from
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Frankel in relation. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Chris. Yes, you're right. And as a matter of fact, you know, the way I talked to them about this, I said, listen, your mama was killed. She was murdered, because there's a lot of bad people out there, but you're not alone. There's a lot of kids your age and younger who lost mommy and daddy to such horrific things of murder. So we have to be that strength for them. You need to be strong, and one day God would use you to encourage those kids to make it through life. You know, we take what was intended to be very evil and is still evil, but we turn it for good. You know, my own mother lost 3 children, you know, 2 to war and 1 to actually murder suicide. And she would say to me, you know, when I would say, Mom, you know, you're why aren't you crying? You know, she was very strong because she endured the war where her father was killed, and she was a prisoner of the war at 12 years old, Chris. And so she had a lot of strength, and she said, crying won't bring them back. We have to move forward. We have to move on. We have to be strong. And, you know, she was that way all through her life, because that's what you have to do. What else can you do? When this happened to me, the first thing I said is, can I get through this? Oh my gosh, this is unbearable. Is there anybody out there that's gone through it that can tell me I can get through it? And I couldn't find anybody. And then I looked for organizations that could help me, and I couldn't find anybody. Everybody's, you know, is just educational, I guess. I don't know. But then that's when I said I needed to be that. I needed to be that person that would get through this. And I needed to be that person that can help other people. And that's what I decided to be. And I did it. And I won't stop, and I will continue. And I encourage people to continue. Don't give up. Don't let this thing knock you over. Be strong. You know, I've taken moms, I call them up, what's going on? I'm depressed. I can't get out of bed. I just listen, go cry in your shower, get dressed, make that phone call I told you to make, and follow up on those senators. You know?
Yeah,
We need to encourage each
you work
other.
the politicians.
I
Is
did.
that do you find, you know, to counsel other victims, do you find that which of the 2 avenues had the best result for you? Meaning the political avenue or the LE avenue?
The better results.
Yeah.
You mean to get this done?
Yeah.
Both levels. I played both levels. While I was in one level, dealing with the people I was working with, the police departments and stuff, I was on the other level pushing downward. So I was pushing upward and downward. And it works. I've also, I've been involved in the community all these for many, 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 many years. I've been an advocate for children with learning disabilities in school. I've been a CASA worker. I've had all kinds of trainings and stuff. I've always been a volunteer most of my life. And I understand politics. I've actually lobbied in the state of Washington and got a bill passed on transparency and adoption. And I'm not a lobbyist. I decided I was going to do it and I learned it step by step. And I'm just here to tell you that if you put your mind to it, you can move mountains. You just got to move with those mountains. You can't give up. And do it in a positive way. Because I met a lot of great people, and such as yourself, Chris. And I made a lot of friends along the way. I know a lot of people in Belize and Mexico
You
and
haven't
Guatemala.
you haven't
A lot of great.
reconsidered our friendship? You haven't
Well,
reconsidered our friendship?
what kind of, I like your dog. So,
I'm sorry. Okay, you met a lot of people in Belize. I rudely interrupted you.
no, that's okay. But, I met a lot of great people along the way. And they encourage me. So it takes a village. It's all of us. It's even your people, even people out there that are, that are listening, that are participating. I've even had some of your audience following me around, and they've helped me, assisted me with my website. And everybody out there can add something positive to this world. We can.
Yeah, everybody has that meaning. Everybody has a purpose. And even like I tell the TIR family, there are so many smart people in this chat, even tonight, and people that come in, just to visit, and, this may be their cup of tea or maybe not their cup of tea, but, they come in and they leave a very kind comment. They talk about, other people in a very dignified way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see the contrast to that, right? There's always going to be opposition in all things.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make that decision like you've, counseled here, quite frankly, is you can either fight with an agency and it goes downhill from there, or you can just say, okay, how do I get these people to move in the right direction?
Absolutely.
And then you worked it same up here at the political level.
Yes.
Am I reading this correctly?
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I would have, like, for example, the marshal would come running back to me and said, Josephine, you put in another letter of request. You put in another, inquiry, congressional inquiry. I said, yes. Why? Because I want to know what's going on in the case up there. Well, I know what it does. Eventually, let me tell you, if you put in a congressional inquiry, your case goes from this to like this. Okay. And if you call the Pentagon and make a complaint, the case goes up like this. Okay. They don't like that. They don't like paperwork. They don't like the mess. Make noises. Make a lot of noises in the right direction.
Yeah, that's wise counsel. The loudest drum gets heard.
Yes.
And
there's even a scripture. There's a scripture in the Bible of a judge and a widow, and she kept coming and requesting for something, and the judge didn't even like her, didn't even like what she was requesting, but finally he gave in to her because he couldn't stand it anymore. So it's a true story. They want you out of their hair, especially if you have media attention. That's it. They're going to do everything possible and everything right, but you have to know your limits. I've seen some people that's gone beyond, where they become the enemy of the police, and then they have the media attacking the police. And I know that the police are doing all they can, and they've gone above and beyond and doing everything possible. And you're trying to say, slow down, people. You really backed them up against the corner. And so you got to be mindful of those things too. You got to work smart. when you have the media on your side. You don't want to kill off the people you want to work with, you know?
Yeah, this is a great comment here by Art for Life. Positive persistence can move mountains.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. So everybody, if you're just joining with us tonight, as you can tell, I have Josephine Wentzel, the mother of Krystal Mitchell, who was a victim of a very violent crime where her life was taken by a brutal monster by the name of McLeod, who's currently in custody. But because of this mother's tenacity and Tyrannosaurus Rex idea of hunting him down, she turned the tables on him and went after him. And this is the story. This book is the story of her chase. And recently, it's only been how many weeks now since he's been in custody?
A couple of weeks.
3? Yeah, a couple of weeks.
The end of August.
Yeah, and you also, they've been looking for him. He's on the U.S. Marshals top 15 most wanted. It now is stamped across it, in custody. Do you have a sequel coming to the book, do you think?
The marshal sent me a picture of his desk, and on the desk is the chase, and he's like, I'm waiting for the catch. So I pretty much have a lot of stories to put in there. Yes, I have to finish it. So yes, we're really, I try to get I don't want this to be about just death. I want this to be positive. So I'm really trying to get it out there to encourage people to press on, think outside the box, do something positive. I really think that that something's going to change with what the vision that I see that I have. I really believe that once it's put into action, we're going to see some positive changes. I'd really like to tackle the missing, because there's nothing out there for them. There's a lot of adult children that go missing, and I cannot imagine if my daughter Krystal was missing. I just cannot imagine what I would be doing.
Yeah, I mean, she's a beautiful soul inside and out. I mean, I tell my sweetheart, my Karen, she's beautiful on the inside, and her exterior is a bonus.
Yes, exactly.
And you are the same way. You represent everything about her. Through you, we have come to know her, and sense her inevitable, just lifelong spirit. And I'm really grateful for that, to get to know you through her, because that's really how our paths crossed. I mean, I didn't know much about you when we first met, and I've come to know you and call you a friend. And I just am so excited for the next phase here, yet recognize, as a parent who's lost a child, it never goes away.
Yeah.
It will always be there, but there will be a time when it's not necessarily easier, it's you can endure it.
Yes, and I believe, and I have that peace.
Okay.
I have that peace, and even even my son had asked me, Mom, do you have peace? I said, yes, I do. I have peace with her death, but justice still has to pursue. We still have to pursue justice, and I have more peace now that he's in jail and not hurting somebody else. That's where my unrest and no peace is thinking about what he was doing to other women. But now that he's behind bars, I have more peace about that, and I'm not going to worry about what tomorrow is going to bring, because everything could change in a split second. So.
Yeah. Okay, as you know, and I see Julia, my child's missing, so I understand the empty void to fill. Interesting. Yeah. I'm very sorry. And if you want to send me an email, go out to the website and just click on, contact. You can send it to me and maybe we can talk to you about it. So, okay, as you know how I am with my guest, where do we go from here, right? I know where you're headed, but as always, you have been an amazing inspiration for so many. And this is, again, I really believe this is just the beginning. The trial is the next phase. You're in phase 2. And then phase 3, as you and I have talked behind the scenes, phase 3 is the sentencing and all that other stuff. If you make it through phase 2. And so it's like this idea that just keeps on going for a victim's families. But I want you to know this will always be a safe platform for you and your family. And if, as my Karen, knows that if you want to throw rocks at 3:00 in the morning, you just hit me with a text message. I mean, it was really early when I got your text message that they got this guy in custody. I was like, this is so cool. Good for her. She did it. And I think this is just, one of many, many future destinies that God has for you. And, I think the universe is on schedule. You can't put limits on a limitless God.
Nope.
He knows exactly what he's doing and how he's doing it. And, what's next, right? How is he going to utilize you as an instrument continually in his hands to make a difference into the world? And many other faiths, they have the same principles, outside, not only just Christians, but many, many good people are in all religions. There are some crazy ones, no question about it. But at the same time, we're all trying to do the best that we can without that judgment and that idea. But
yes.
So you have the last word as always, Josephine. And at the end of it, my philosophy or my tradition is we go to Hawaii, as you know. Okay. So I'm going to pull myself out of this and then give you as much time as you want. And at the end, when you sign off, we'll be in Hawaii. So are you good with that?
Okay.
Okay, hang on. Let me get out of here because I don't want to ruin anything.
Okay, so we can talk about Chris now that he's gone. I really appreciate him, but really thank you all out there for your support, your prayers, your kind, warm thoughts. I appreciate you. Don't give up. Surround these families that need your help and give them your support in any way you can. And if you're still seeking justice, you need my assistance somehow. We are angelsofjustice.com.net.org, and send us a message, a link to your case, and we'll try and help whatever we get the opportunity to. We've gotten a lot of calls in. So anyway, send us a message and we'll see what we can do together. All right. Thank you, Chris, very much. And aloha.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face taking away, yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down, we're going away, yeah, we're going away, you and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a way